It has been 40 years since the fall of Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese as the tanks crashed through the gates of the presidential palace. That also marked the end of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. The American attempt to contain communism cost 3 million lives in Vietnam and also cost the U.S. 58,000 troops. Now, that conflict left the economy in tatters. 40 years later, that country is one of the fastest growing in Asia. Tony Chang looks at how Vietnam did it.
The War of Independence that freed Vietnam and the war with America that united it came at a great price. Decades of conflict, death and famine had decimated agricultural output, and targeted bombing wiped out industry. Although victory was sweet, there was a more pressing problem.
The fighting spirit, the success of the reunification of the country was very high. But the economy in the north was actually totally destroyed.
Dr. Duan was the principal architect charged with rebuilding the Vietnamese economy. But peace didn't bring growth. The collapse of the Soviet bloc in the 80s left Vietnam on the brink of disaster, with inflation running at 700%.
A critical situation has pressed the party and the government to reform. They need to reform in order to survive.
First came the reform of the farming system, agriculture driven by market forces, not collectives. Incomes and output for farmers rose. Vietnam is now one of the largest rice exporters in the world, but industry is harder to boost than rice production. The government needed to attract investment from outside.
And foreign direct investment was substantial to assist Vietnam, to provide Vietnam access to market, to technology, and by that way to increase export.
The result has been quite remarkable. A nation once divided with per capita income below $100 a year now has annual incomes 200 times that. This is the bridge on the 17th parallel where once North and South Vietnam were divided until the end of the American War in 1975. But once reunited, Vietnam swiftly rebuilt. And today, it's one of the most dynamic economies in the ASEAN bloc. In Da Nang, the city where US combat troops first landed, a new raft of investment has now arrived. The Korea Investment and Development Company are so confident they've just started constructing the 2 highest buildings in the city, a residential block and a 5-star hotel.
I have confidence they are keeping, some stable condition for other countries, also domestic people. So all the foreign investors, they are doing stable business in Vietnam, I think.
The site itself is an example of the ambitions of this port city. High-end residential properties designed for tourists and executives living in Da Nang because of its importance as a manufacturing hub. And looking out at the bay, it seems almost impossible. This was once the center of a destructive war machine. Tony Chang, CCTV, Da Nang.